right, we're going to get our hands dirty here a little bit. We're going to go back to 1981. We're going to be at the Playboy Club, and we're in the midst of the World's Strongest Man competition. There's a pretty well-known lifter there that day. His name's Bill Kazmaier, and he happened to pull off one of the greatest feats of strength that you've ever seen. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the atmosphere, the expectation, the excitement. What was it like to be in the mainstream with a counterculture type event, and then also just to see that level of talent that we're seeing at that 1981 World's Strongest Man?
Well, back in 81, I was 31, so I was pretty much into lifting.
Yep.
And I wanted to see what the bridge was between powerlifting, because I saw the great Bill Kazmaier win a number of meets with his powerlifting prowess. But to go in the World's Strongest Man, I said, well, gosh, I want to see him in another arena. Arrived in Great Gorge during the first day, and it was just a few moments before I walked up to the event, which was the bar bend, that Kazmaier tore his pec.
So he tore his pec in the first event?
Yeah, I think it was the first or second event of the first day.
Okay.
It already started turning. He was in a tank top. It was already starting to turn black and blue, more of a dark black color. And I said, well, he's done, and it's been fun. But he continued that day. They took a break for the first day. I was decided to get dinner in their restaurant, and one of the strangest occurrences I've ever been around. Everyone was from mixed backgrounds at the Playboy Club. They weren't there just for the weightlifting. And I was eating, and all of a sudden I heard a sound like either glass breaking or at a wedding when you would tap a glass with a fork. And I started looking around. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was just the mere presence of Kazmaier in a tank top walking through that restaurant, that people that had no affiliation with weightlifting or powerlifting, and maybe some did, actually dropping their forks in their plate. Just an astonishment that a man could be that impressive. And that total feeling of power walking by you, I'm sure could have changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, he still has it today. There's a charisma, there's a personality there that he has something uniquely different than any lifter I've come in contact with. He was the man. He was the man, right?
He was the man, but he evolved. He was so far ahead of the bubble in the day because he used everything, not only his natural strength, but he used the psychology, he used the equipment. He had special boots to squat in, a perfect belt to use. He was totally into what Kaz was doing. Kind of unapproachable, but you had to respect that he was so focused he didn't have time for light conversation. He was something to be just in awe of. He was. But now you're looking at a man that's severely hurt, and he has several things ahead that are going to be very, very difficult for a man being hurt. And the last event was physical combat, sumo wrestling against men that are NFL pro linemen.
Yeah.
Hitting you in the chest with their fists while you have a ripped pec.
Right.
This is not something that I was thinking to look forward to. But another event came up, and at that time, Kaz, he knew me a little, and we kind of got together and we talked and we took some pictures together. And he didn't like that I was tall, so he stacked a couple of plates up to stand on them so he would appear taller than me.
Sure.
And he told me that day, he says, if I only had the grip that you had, he said, I'd be able to deadlift more. And I said, look, you have it all. But his hands were actually so meaty that he had a problem in the deadlift. His grip would give before his back and legs did. Well, I was thinking I said, the silver dollar deadlift is coming up, which was a pull of an Olympic bar set into two boxes that were transparent, and it was filled with silver dollars. And the idea was the bar was about above your kneecap.
So roughly, just to give modern day strongman, an 18-inch.
I think maybe a little bit more. I don't know how far it was.
Sure.
But that was something at that time I personally could have held my own on that one.
Sure.
It was something I was real good at. And ultimately, later, I did 13:31
Yeah.
in a lockout like that. So I really wanted to watch that event, and they came out, and they started at 600 or so. And actually, a lot of the strongmen, even in that shorter distance of lockout, a lot of them left at between 600 and 700. Well, the 700s really narrowed everyone out. The weather started turning a little dark in the skies, a little drizzle. They were on the deck of a pool deck, so it wasn't the greatest place to be. Kaz was hurt. He hadn't come out yet, and I'm going like, gee, boy, he must be saving it or whatever. So as it moved up to about mid-sevens, I'm trying to think. Jeff Capes came out. I think he did the highest of the group. I'm not sure with that, but Kaz was hurt, so he just wanted to come out and take enough, I guess, to win. Well, he came out. He did the lift pretty handily. I couldn't believe with a torn pec you could pull that kind of weight.
Sure.
And it was probably right at 800. And he went to put it down, and he did it with that before the referee said down. Well, they called him on it, and it was a very scary time. He was really upset about it because he was hurting too.
Yeah.
Well, long story short, last man took his lift. I think it was, I'll tell you how much it was, because it was 875. That's a lot of weight for lockout.
Sure.
You know, so 875 was done, and no Kazmaier, and we're all looking around like, what the, you know, I guess that's it. And Kaz says, I'll take 100 more, put it on. And I'm going, hey, no way, this guy's, he's hurt, and he's raining, and, you know. So he came out, and he addressed the bar, and as he grabbed the bar, I'm not kidding you, there was a roll of thunder, and he kind of looked up at it, and he kind of like half growled, and he put his head back down, and I said, this is really getting scary now. You know, this is like, you know, someone's sending me a message. Well, he pulls on this 975 and locks that damn thing out. And he holds it, and he's staring, holding it, just looking at the judge. And he eases it back down and barely touches it to the ground, done, and he pulls it up for the second rep. I was dumbfounded. I mean, to see that, and after he put it down, he pointed straight at the referee like that, like, I dare you to take this away from me.
Right.
And I was just like, whoa, you know, and people were just elated. I mean, I saw what that man had inside of him, what he wanted it that bad. And he wasn't going to beat you by a little. He was going to beat you by a lot.
What was the demeanor of the competition at that point? Was it a done deal?
No, there were men of different disciplines. There were 2 or 3 professional football players, quite strong.
John Gamble was one, right?
Gamble, yeah, I knew John quite well. There was Brian, I think Dolkowitz was a discus thrower, very athletic guy. Jeff Capes, a Highland Games fella. There were, I'm trying to think of who else was there of note, but it was a pretty well-rounded field. It was only the 3rd or 4th year of the World's Strongest Man, and the events weren't widely announced. They couldn't practice for these things like we do today.
Sure.
So if they just decide you're going to lift up the back end of a whatever, that might be the first time you've ever tried that. So supposedly a test, if it's a novel task, is the most pure form of proving strength or anything else. So they might encounter something they've never even tried before.
Right.
Which to me was exciting.
Sure.
Because you take that technique away, it comes back to what are we looking for? Raw power.
So how was he received? I mean, you say it changed you, and it you saw into the man. What was the referee's response at that point? I mean, was he just terrified?
Yes. He was, and all the referees were lifters.
Yeah.
And they were trying to do their job as best they could. And the main thing is, if you're in a contest, you got to follow the rules.
Right.
You can't do what you want to do. You have to do what is allowed within the parameters of the contest. But he was so intense, as I said before, the look in his eyes, if it killed him, he would have done it.
Yeah.
And so few ever, he believed he could do it.
Sure.
Some, well, I wish I could, or it would be nice, or gee, my friends are watching, I better try hard. There was none of that there. It was absolute, no matter what, this is going up.
I think that's one of the most important aspects for athletes to hear. And I know that we've all talked about it, we've all seen this, but this is a conversation I've personally had with Kaz. We've very, very seldom talked about the reps and the sets. It's always with him been the mental approach. The mental approach to his recovery. I can remember being in Alaska with him and my friend Swede, and he was just talking about the meticulous. He said, I tried to think of every cell from the toe to the top of my head being repaired. He said, I tried to imagine that cellular repair taking place so that I could come back and give my all the next workout. And like you said, the extreme preparation, the boots, the belt, everything was calculated. I think that says more to me, interested in the psyche of a lifter than just the reps and sets, because anybody can pick something up. It takes a special person to go to that place.
When you start adding layers of equipment, of genetics, of mental preparation, of knowing how to recover, all those things he maximized. That's what set him so far apart from the crowd at that given time. Strong, he was really, really strong. But he was so determined to be strong, there was no one stronger mentally out there.
Do you think that was the keystone for his legend, or do you think the powerlifting was the beginning and then...
He did very well powerlifting. He really did. I mean, I saw him squatting in the low 900s, which was huge for the day.
Sure.
887 deadlift, huge, I think he had more power to do more in the deadlift. He just couldn't hold it. I saw him drop a number of them. The bench press, who's going to do 61 with a pause raw? I mean, come on, today, who could do that now? And very few.
He's very, very vocal about what he believes he could have done. Do you think full strength, and I don't want to quote him, but he quoted well into the sevens as far as if he had stayed healthy that day. Do you think that was possible within him?
Well, in the sevens raw?
Yeah.
Well, he's 600 for 6. It was his best raw in the bench.
Yeah.
Which correlates very well with probably a little bit higher than 661. By the way, Terry Todd spotted him on that world's record. I would say he would be good for 680 to 700. I saw him at his absolute peak as far as physical levels.
Sure.
How much more he could have added, I don't know.
I think that ties into what we were just talking about, though. His belief was that 750. If you put that in his hands, he would have found a way to get it. And I think as a lifter, being on both sides as a spectator, but as under the bar, you have to think that way.
Well, like he said, conceive,
believe and achieve.
If you believe in you, and you have a goal set in your mind, and you are willing to go to that secret place that he could take himself to, is there any stopping him when his arms and legs fall off or fail or his fingers pull off? I think he had that level of ferocity that he could push himself to the point where, like, you lift a car off a child.
Sure.
Where you have to do it no matter what, and your body goes into an automatic response.
So the lift has happened. The competition's over. You're at the Playboy Club, 1981. I'm imagining this is a pretty happening place, pretty cool event. What was the atmosphere like after the event for the athletes, and what was the atmosphere like for you? Was there anything else that made this more than just an event?
The athletes were really very cordial to each other. They were. because it was new. It was like, hey, let's go off and try this.
Sure.
And yes, they wanted all to be the world's strongest man. It came down to the final sumo wrestling, which amazed me because they were trained NFL linemen that were trained to push you and throw you down, going against weightlifters that never played football.
Right.
And let alone the gentleman winning it, again, Kazmaier, out of pure will, made that. And when it was over, they were all buddies. I was blessed to sit out the next morning, and still Mike Bridges asked me for it, but I was lucky enough to see Mike Bridges go through a series of squats with just his spotters on the pool deck, and at 186 pounds squatted 1,005.
So
and I felt like I was a bug watching this amazing thing that no one else has seen.
So you do have evidence of this, though. You have proof of it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have the pictures of it.
That's what I was.
The only pictures of it.
I think that's, we live in such a day and age of, where's the video, or it didn't happen, or photo it, or it didn't happen. And I think it's such a special thing that in a time, in a day and age when not everyone had a photo, a camera in their pocket, for you to be able to see that and witness it. And for Mike Bridges as a power lifter to be there in support of strongman.
Yes.
I think that's a significant point.
There were a number of powerlifters there that I had recognized from the national meets and whatnot, and they were very supportive of all the people. It was a purer form. People were not so separated. They're going, hey, let's give this thing a try and really see who's the strongest here.
So walking away from that competition, what was your reaction and what was your motivation moving forward?
The motivation is seeing a new sport really starting to flourish. I always wondered that what is true, should the strongest person be able to throw the shot put the furthest? Well, no, there's intervening type things that separate that. The length of your limbs, all these things. And I'm starting to see something evolve, a camaraderie, something that the average person, they don't know the difference in a 600 and an 800-pound deadlift because they can't do either.
Sure.
But if you pick up the back end of a car, they know that's heavy.
Right.
Or if you could hold a battery out at arm's length, and people know from struggling how heavy a battery is,
right,
you get instant cred. I mean, you get respect. And to me, I love strength so much that if that was something that could blossom into more people liking strength or being drawn to it, great. I was excited. I got to see the start of something that's grown even further. It's thrilling, even to this day. One of the great ones of all time. I took him aside and just said, look, I said, to be a basketball player with a strong grip, Brian,
yeah,
you need to do other things. He said, what should I do? And we got in conversations, and that's how he got started into, Mr. Shaw got started into strongman.
Yeah.
He grew some,
yeah,
but what I saw in him, he didn't see.
Yeah. And
then it awoke, and it went on. So what a great thing. I mean, it's the sharing and the giving back, or that inspiration that guy going to the well made me want to be better. It's not about him. He gave me a gift. They gave me a gift, so I could pass it on.
You're too good at this, man.
Good.
I think that's great.
Oh.